Hi, I'm Skip Nipper. Welcome to Skip's Corner, the podcast where I tell you about not only Nashville's great baseball history and traditions,
shot to right, a one-hop liner,
but certainly about its past. And you will hear a little bit about its present and future, too.
Yes, he can. It makes the waist-high catch.
There are great stories about Tom Wilson Park, Herschel Greer Stadium, Sulphur Dell, and the players, coaches, and fans who love everything about baseball. And every once in a while, you will get to hear from a special guest who will share their fondness and even passion for the great game.
The high fly ball down the right field corner, going way back, hits a lead-off home run.
Nashville is represented in the National Baseball Hall of Fame by two players who were born in Nashville. Lee MacPhail, who was an administrator as president of the American League, but he was born in Nashville when his dad was living here. And Turkey Stearns, a great Negro League player who was born in Nashville also. And just recently, we've added Todd Helton, wasn't born in Nashville, but he's born in Knoxville, and he was recently inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Great University of Tennessee player and Colorado Rockies star. Now, there have been a few players who wore a Nashville uniform, too. Hazen Kai Kyler played for the Nashville Vols in 1923, and Waite Hoyt in 1918. And a few played for the Nashville Sounds. Trevor Hoffman pitched for the Sounds in 1992. He's a great reliever. And this is a little bit of a stretch, but he did wear a Nashville Sounds uniform for 2 games. Cincinnati Reds shortstop, a great player, Barry Larkin. He had 5 plate appearances in 1988. And yes, it was a rehab for him, but he wore a Nashville uniform. And there may be more, but those immediately come to mind. And of course, many, many Hall of Famers appeared here, not only at Sulphur Dell, but at Tom Wilson Park too. Hank Aaron? Yes. Josh Gibson? You bet. Satchel Paige? Yep. All the Yankee greats, including Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, and Lou Gehrig? Of course they did. And Ty Cobb? Sure did. Rube Waddell? Yep. Now, you can hardly name one that did not appear here, either in a regular season game, an exhibition game, or maybe a barnstorming game. Like, I can't find that Willie Mays played for anybody and came here and played, but except in a Willie Mays All-Stars game after the season was over. And, of course, there were managers who are in the Hall of Fame that came here with their teams, too. But let me take you to 1905, the early days of Nashville baseball in the 20th century, during a 5-day period when 5 Hall of Famers appeared here. Now, a little background information. Nashville won the first 2 Southern Association championships in 1901 and 1902. And the next 2 years were not as good, but team owner and manager Newt Fisher, who was born in Nashville also, was rounding out his prospects as early as January, signing players to fill the roster for the 1905 Southern Association season. In February, he announced that spring training would take place a little earlier than usual, and players should dust off their gloves and show up at Athletic Park to be known as Sulphur Dell in 3 years. So they should be here by March the 20th. He also let it be known through the local newspaper that he would do what it took to produce a good ball club and return Nashville to a championship as had been captured in 1901 and 1902. And the newspaper read, "Manager Fisher will get rid of the dead material as soon as possible. Those who do not come up to expectations will be sold or farmed out. He will have need for more than 15 players after the exhibition series." Well, the exhibition series included the New York Giants on March the 29th and 30th, the Cincinnati Reds on April the 3rd and 4th, and the Boston Bean Eaters on April the 11th. And interspersed between those contests with the big league clubs were games from the collegiate side. Vanderbilt, University of Nashville, and Cornell University made a trip south to play in Nashville and other places. Now, it was not unusual for players to play against local college teams, and Nashville often turned to local colleges to play games when their own ballpark was flooded, and that happened all too often when spring rain filled the Cumberland River, which overflowed its banks. So, before the pro teams came down on March 23rd, Vanderbilt and Nashville met at Athletic Park. But Nashville, the pros, were too much for the amateurs, the Commodores, beating the West Enders by a score of 10-0. And that night, rain fell and left a muddy ball field. But Nashville prevailed once again the next day, this time by a 5-4 score. Now, the University of Nashville had a great ball team back in those days, too. They were called the Maroons, and they were up next and were roughed up by Fisher's team 8-0 on March the 25th. And because no games could be played on Sunday, the two teams met again on Monday, March the 27th. And the Collegians were no match and were smacked 18-3. But meanwhile, over at Vanderbilt's Dudley Field, which was an all-purpose field for all sports back in those days, Cornell paid a visit and won over the Commodores 10-6. The importance of this contest was not really the score. The team from Ithaca, New York, was coached by legendary Glenn Warner, who would go on to fame in college football and be known best by his nickname, Pop. Yes, Pop Warner was coaching the baseball team at Cornell. It was his first year in handling baseball chores at Cornell, and he would last 2 seasons on the ball diamond before dedicating his efforts strictly to football. Now, both Nashville and Cornell won their respective games on March the 28th, as the Fishermen shut out the Maroons 6-0, and Warner's ball club whitewashed the Commodores 3-0. And rain canceled the highly anticipated game between Nashville and the National League champion, New York. But a doubleheader on March the 30th resulted in 2 losses for the local team, as the Giants won 13-2 and 4-0 in a 5-inning game. And the newspaper account says there were 2,500 fans in the stands. Starting for Muggsy McGraw, the great manager in the opener, was deaf-mute Luther "Dummy" Taylor, who had been 21-15 in 1904. And he was relieved by Christy Mathewson, who had won 33 while losing 12 the previous season. And the second game featured Joe Ironman McGinnity, who led the league with a 1.61 ERA and in wins with 35 against only 8 losses. So McGraw in 1937, Mathewson 1936, McGinnity 1946, and catcher Roger Bresnahan 1945. Those are the years they were selected from the Giants team elected to the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, another doubleheader was scheduled for March the 31st, with Nashville taking on the Giants in the first game and losing 8-4, and New York playing Cornell in the second game. Now, having pitched so few innings the day before, it was a 5-inning game. McGinnity was called against the Collegians in the second game, and Matheson also appeared in the 7-4 win over Warner's team. And with the Giants leaving town after their second doubleheader in 2 days, Cornell lingered for one last game in Athletic Park against Nashville. And in a 1-hour, 35-minute game, the pros won 4-3 in a hard-fought contest won by Nashville with a single run in the last inning. After final exhibition games with Louisville and Toledo, Nashville would begin the season with high hopes riding on the shoulders of outfielder Frank Norcom, who would bat .300 and lead the league with 522 plate appearances, 157 hits, and 86 runs. And you would think that would lead Nashville to the 1905 Southern Association Championship. But not totally surprising, on July the 7th, midway through the season, Newt Fisher sold his Nashville baseball interests to a local syndicate, and Mike Finn succeeded Fisher as team manager for the remainder of the year. And if you can believe it, Nashville would finish in 7th place in the Southern Association standings with only 47 wins and 88 losses in a dismal season. But capturing a second National League crown McGraw's Giants would win the World Series over the Philadelphia Athletics, 4-1. And after the team's Nashville visit, Pop Warner would take his Cornell Baseball Club east before beginning the season, and his 1905 ball club would finish the season with a 16-8 record. After a 20-7 record in 1906, Warner would concentrate on football, and his success would lead to his selection to the College Football Hall of Fame in 1951. Now, Nashville spring of 1905 brought 5 players or coaches named to respective halls of fame in later years. It was significant that one, Warner, would include our grand old game in his coaching duties. Yes, one of the Hall of Famers was known for football, but the others are worthy to be in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. I hope you enjoyed this segment, learning about Hall of Famers who came to Nashville for this segment of Nashville baseball history. I hope you continue to listen. You can always write me at 262downright@gmail.com. If you have something you'd like to tell me, like me to highlight, like me to look up for you, I'll be happy to do that. As always, thanks for listening.